Hello again. I'm Joe McTurnan, AOPA's Director of Health Policy and Advocacy. Thanks for joining me today for another edition of AOPA's Take. Today we are going to discuss an issue that AOPA worked on for more than a year and proves that perseverance and positive communication does eventually pay off with positive results. In the summer of 2021, AOPA started to receive reports from members of claim rejections that included remark codes CO 261, which means the procedure or service is inconsistent with the patient's history, and N56, which states that the procedure code billed is not correct or is invalid for the services billed or the date of service billed. These claims were rejected, not denied, which meant that providers had no ability to file an appeal. They could only correct the information and resubmit the claim. AOPA members reported that when they contacted DME/MAC provider service representatives, they were told that the claims were rejected properly, the edits were in place at the direction of CMS, and the only option was to submit a corrected claim that was consistent with the patient's medical history. This created significant frustration among AOPA members who were clearly reporting accurate information regarding the patient's amputation type and level, but were being held liable for erroneous information reported by any number of other providers at any point in the patient's history. AOPA members were essentially being asked to find the needle in the haystack if they wanted any chance to ultimately be reimbursed for their claim. AOPA reached out to multiple contacts at the DME/MACs and CMS to try and achieve resolution to this problem for AOPA members. Initially, AOPA was told the same thing as our members, that the only recourse was to identify where in the patient's history the erroneous information was reported and ask the reporting provider to correct their record. This was obviously not a viable solution, and frustration continued to grow, especially as providers began to approach the 12-month timely filing limit on Medicare claims. After several reassurances that CMS and the DME/MACs were aware of the issue and were working on a solution, AOPA finally received a communication from the DME/MAC medical directors that CMS had agreed to allow impacted providers to resubmit their claims with appropriate documentation to support the level of amputation they were reporting. If the claims were denied, providers would finally have the opportunity to file an appeal. The communication also indicated that the typical 12-month timely filing limit on Medicare claims would be waived in this scenario. I'm happy to report that AOPA has heard from several members that upon resubmission, the impacted claims have begun to process correctly. While this solution took time and effort, it is a good example of how AOPA's work to build strong relationships with both CMS and the DME/MACs resulted in a positive outcome for our members. Thanks for just a few minutes of your time today. AOPA's Take, where you go when you need to know.